Next benefit we're going to close with is the difference between a student of knowledge and a student of the internet. And this is so many in today's time. The difference between a student of knowledge and a student of the internet. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. A student of knowledge is a lofty position to hold, and becoming a successful one isn't awarded to everyone by Allah. We have some people who embarked upon their studies but didn't achieve any level, while others have advanced. All in all, the ultimate achievement from being a student of knowledge is Jannah, and we ask Allah for Jannah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَقُلْ رَبِّي زِدْنِي عِلْمًا, and say, my Lord, increase me in knowledge. This is what the Prophet ﷺ was asked for. Increase me in what? He didn't say, zidni fi ma'lan. He said, zidni ilma, increase me in knowledge. The path of the student of knowledge, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, ask Allah for beneficial knowledge and seek refuge with Allah from the knowledge that is of no benefit. The student of knowledge begins with manners and learning the etiquettes of being a student. When it comes to manners, they should be learned directly from the scholars. And although we have numerous books that describe the way the Muslim should interact with others, learning by practical experience is better. The first practice the student needs to acquire and understand as learning Islam is worship. So since it's worship, it has two conditions. The first condition for the acceptance of worship and sincerity along with the practice is the key to it. So that practice is the way the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did it. Seeking knowledge for a position in a school, in a university, or a masjid is a waste. Allah mentioned the Quran, and whoever desires the life of this world and its glitter, to them we shall pay in full wages their deeds therein, and they will have no diminution therein. There are those for whom there is nothing in the hereafter but fire, and vain are the deeds they did therein, and of no effect is that which they used to do. Being a student of knowledge can be risky at times, but being a student of knowledge, then raised into the rank of scholar, makes it even more riskier. The scholar is among the first people to be placed on the day of judgment. The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said the first people whom judgment will be pronounced on the day of judgment will be a man who died a martyr. He will be brought, and Allah will make it known to him his favors, and he will recognize them. Then the Almighty will say, and what did you do about them? He will say, I fought for you until I died a martyr. Allah will say, you have lied. You did not fight that it may be said of you, he is courageous, that's why you did it. And so it was said, then he will be ordered to be dragged along on his face until he's cast into hell. Another will be a man who has studied religious knowledge and has taught it, and he used to recite the Quran. He will be brought, and Allah will make known to him his favors, and he will recognize them. The Almighty will say, and what did you do about them? He will say, I studied religious knowledge, and I taught it, and I recited the Quran for your sake. He will say, you have lied. You did but study religious knowledge, that it may be said of you, he has learned. And you recited the Quran, so it may be said of you, he is a reciter. And so it will be said, and it was said. Then he will be ordered to be dragged along his face until he's cast into hell. So the student of knowledge needs to follow the way of the Salaf, meaning the righteous predecessors from the first three generations. And following their way isn't restricted to a particular time period which doesn't fit in today's world. Shadowing their path in knowledge and actions in every aspect of religion is a must. There are some people who follow the Salaf in some things but not in others, and this is incorrect. By abandoning the actions of our pious predecessors in this way, misguidance is bound to befall us. For example, you have a person who follows the Salaf in the section of Allah's names and attributes, but not in Iman. So in this case, he's left off a portion of their methodology. And when he follows their way for Allah's sake and follows their path in regards to Allah's names and attributes with the other understanding in Imam, then he acts with the rulers unlike the way the Salaf did and commanded. He couldn't be considered a follower of the Salafi methodology. Meaning that we have some people who follow everything that Imam Abu Hanifa, Malik, and Shafi'i and Ahmed said, and Sufyan ibn Uyayna, Sufyan Thawri, and so forth. But when it comes to interaction with the Muslim ruler, they go outside of that and follow a path of the Khawarij, meaning they revolt against the Muslim rulers. The student of knowledge must fear Allah and obeying Him and distance himself from acts of disobedience. Gaining the fear of Allah is done by having knowledge of Allah, His might and ability to punish whomever He wills, whenever He wills. The student of knowledge needs to be mindful that Allah is all aware of what he does. The student of knowledge must learn to be patient and endure harms from others and submit to the truth from any direction it comes to him. The seeker of knowledge must maintain integrity and manliness while avoiding all types of manners which aren't suitable for him. This includes all speech and actions. Therefore, the student of knowledge avoids all gatherings where vain and idle speech is spoken and sinning is done. By doing this, the student safeguards his time and instead uses it for the obedience of Allah. The student of knowledge avoids entering into conflicts where there's unrest between people and he isn't able to determine who's right or wrong. The student of knowledge has gentleness, but this doesn't mean that he doesn't refute falsehood. Before the student embarks on anything, he thinks about the outcome of his speech and his actions. He tries always to choose the right words before talking. The student of knowledge chooses a scholar to stick to and learn from and selects the proper reading material. When the student meets these two requirements, he gradually progresses in his studies from level 1 to level 2 and so on. He must avoid reading extensive works until he's grounded in the smaller books. The student of knowledge must learn the terminologies of the scholars and prepare himself to memorize texts and pieces of evidence. The student mustn't allow himself to get bored. During his studies with his teacher, and more specifically in the beginning of his studies, he should avoid the issues of differing until he's well grounded in the foundations of principles. It's crucial that a student doesn't act by every book he reads until he asks the scholars of his era. The student must learn to respect his sheikh, his teacher. He shouldn't irritate his teacher by asking him questions which aren't of benefit. When questioning your sheikh, listen carefully so that you can comprehend the answer, thus avoiding him the question again. The important thing a person can benefit from his sheikh is manners. The student of knowledge writes and records the words of his sheikh only after getting his permission. The student of knowledge must be on alert when choosing friends. He should choose those who help him in his quest for knowledge and uphold obedience to Allah, His Messenger, and the Muslim rulers. As a seeker of the Sharia, the student should plan to travel to scholars who can teach him. Traveling to learn is the way of the Salaf. Now we close with the student of the internet. Now, the student of the internet and social media is rude and hateful. He doesn't display Islamic manners when interacting with others over the internet. You'll notice the student of the internet rarely begins his conversation with Assalamu alaikum. The student of knowledge, the student of the internet struggles with sincerity. He enjoys writing posts which others share and like on social media. The student of the internet is unable to remain quiet. He loves joining forums, WhatsApp chat rooms, and Twitter feeds to show he has some information or knowledge. The time he spends studying is way less than the actual time he spends on the internet, bouncing from website to website, from Facebook page to another, looking for the slips and mistakes of any and every Muslim he can find on the net. Sounds familiar? The student of the internet prefers to follow the majority of the actions of others on social media instead of clinging to the Salaf. The student of the World Wide Web feels a sense of loneliness with the real world. Therefore, on the internet, he feels accepted and has a sense of satisfaction once his post is liked and shared. The student of the .net, .com, and .org world doesn't build his own education on foundation. However, instead, he fixes himself with browsing and surfing the web pages to gain information on issues that can't fully be understood and grasped without the foundation. In other words, he reads about issues and avoids learning the principles. The student of the internet takes pleasure in the freedom of speech that the internet provides, and as a result of this, he writes carelessly and is heedless that while he's writing, so are the angels, and as a consequence, his level of God consciousness is low. The student of social media is impatient and harms others in his fight to make others agree with his opinions in posts or the views in his references. The student of the internet enters and chimes in forums, tweets, and messages where backbiting is practiced, and unfortunately he stays there long enough until his participation is a record against him. This all results for him not thinking about the outcome of the letters he enters with his keystroke. The student of internet doesn't choose a reputable website or a scholar to learn from, but as a substitute bookmarks pages that mainly publish and share gossip and slander. If only the student of the internet would visit sites with the senior scholars where their recordings of classes are hosted, then sat in the comfort of his house and listened to those audios taking notes, this would be much better for his education. The student of the internet gets bored with real classes and lectures. In fact, his attention span for reading and studying decreases day by day. He approximately spends 3 to 5 hours daily off and on, surfing and browsing the net. So when we add this up, his time spent in cyberspace, then for every 8 hours he spent a total of 24 hours, a complete day on the net. Imagine that. He's wasting his time. The student of the internet hasn't any manners with dealing with scholars. He only calls or writes them to establish his argument in his favor so that he can rush and spread it on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. In many cases, he doesn't even ask the sheikh's permission to record his conversation. And if he asks him to record it, he doesn't get his permission to spread it. To take it a step further, if the sheikh allows him to record it and spread it, he'll place his own title on the talk and use it for other than what the sheikh intended, and Allah is a witness to this treachery. The student of the internet is reckless in his choice he makes his friends with, as he befriends them through social media. Generally speaking, he befriends all those who agree with him and unfriends and blocks those who don't agree with him. The student of the net doesn't return his affairs back to the Quran and Sunnah, and rather refers back to websites, YouTube, videos, and Twitter. In closing, the student of the internet doesn't follow any program of study other than daily site visits. And when it comes to finding fatwa, unlike a student of knowledge who asks scholars, the student of the internet prefers to hit Google and then take it from there. So whichever website he's redirected to, based on his search, he takes that answer and implements it the best way he sees fit. And Allah's aid and help are sought for this. Written and prepared by Abu Ali.